So I did some research on some malware and or malicious software, as it can be called. And looking at this presentation today, we'll be looking at some certain things. So the first is understanding of what malware is, why malware is used, and I thought I've been at some statistics that I found on some websites that I referenced, which I think can be quite interesting to look at. And then the focus of a particular type of malware I'm looking at is rootkit. So we're looking at what is rootkit and the protections used against rootkit. And at the end, if there's any questions or any discussions, that can be done at the end of the presentation. So firstly, we'll just cover what is malware and why is it used. So it can be defined as software created by cyber criminals that have bad intentions in regards to personal information, computers and operating systems. And as you can see here, malware isn't just one thing, it's multiple different, there's multiple different types of malware. They all have different ways of working. So you can see on here you've got a worm, adware, scareware, trojan, spyware and virus, and that all is part of malware. So they all operate differently, but the intention is to cause some sort of bad intention to the end user. So why? Well, it could be for financial gain. Sometimes it's to find out information or to even delete certain information. So that's why it can be used. So I thought it'd be quite interesting to bring up some statistics. And I found out that one type of malware that's not commonly used is a virus. And according to Bitdefender, globally, it's used by less than 1% of hackers. Delved a bit deeper into it and to try and understand why. And it can be picked up quite easily by a lot of anti-malware software programs, because so it's not actually that used that often. So other hackers look at different ways to different types of malware, which I'm going to go through in a moment regarding a particular one called rootkit. So what is the most used type of malware? I couldn't actually find any information on that. I was really interested to see the statistics in terms of is one malware used more than the other. But what I did find was a chart from statista.com, and this looked at the annual number of malware attacks worldwide, and this was starting from 2015 all the way to 2022, but only through up to June. And what's quite interesting here is that there's some high figures around 2018, 2019, so at 9.9 billion attacks were used. And what's interesting here is that it actually went down quite a bit from 2019 to 2020. And I really wanted to find out why that was the case. Was it something that, was there anything that we did? Any security implementations were there used during that time to help reduce those attacks? I'm not sure. So that's something that's quite interesting there. So the main topic will be today is we'll be talking about rootkit. So what is rootkit? And a rootkit is a way to access the user's computer, and it's without being detected. So it can hide within the system, outsmarting a lot of antivirus scans, and it can be quite. They can embed themselves into the kernel, which giving them the same rights as an administrator. So they are quite hard to detect. So what can happen? Well, they can access, they can execute and access files. They can change the settings on the computer. They can, including the software as well. They can affect. They can embed themselves into different types of software, even though some of them are used. Some software you have are used for protecting your computer. Access secure files, and they can create a backdoor. So that generally just means that they can come back at a later date to access your information, and they can install other types of malware. So how do they work? Well, it goes through a process of modification. So when it's installed on your system, it can change the permissions and security of your actual computer. And I found these online here, like a method that happens. So a dropper is a program or file used to install a rootkit on a target computer, and then when you access that a loader, it launches a code and malicious code after activating the dropper program by executing a file. So preventions used against rootkit, just being careful where you access your information from, what websites you're visiting, and what are you downloading online. Not to pick up any bad USBs, as I call them, because they can be implemented on there. And through social engineering, that's another method that we can be aware of. So keeping those three factors in mind, we can help prevent rootkit being installed onto your system. So identification. So to identify whether your rootkit is either on your computer device can be quite difficult, but there are some ways. So if the system is acting in an unusual way compared to what it is normally, or there's a change in your security settings that you've not changed yourself, that's another way you can identify it. And you could check to see if the internet might be slower than usual. That could be one of the ways that you can help identify whether you've got a rootkit installed. So rootkit protections for the user type of point of view. So there are some softwares out there that can try and identify and remove the rootkit itself. There's a boot time scan during a computer setup that can remove it before actually using your computer. As a last resort, you could wipe a device and then reinstall the operating systems. And as we talked about before, a method that we used, that the best method is prevention. And to make sure that all your system is up to date. So making sure you got the up-to-date updates on Windows or on the operating system that you have. And this one's quite interesting. I found just 3 or 4 days ago, and it's regarding the BIOS and how it's used to protect against rootkit. So the BIOS, it's built into the motherboard. It initializes the computer's hardware and searches for boot device. As you can see on the left here, this is the one I've got, and it's quite basic, and you generally use. Doesn't really have the user face. A good user face onto it. integration on there, so you just use your keyboard to search through the BIOS. And then the other one on here is called the UEFI. This one is designed quite user friendly, operates in the same way as the BIOS, but has more. You can see has more features to it, and one of the features on there is called a secure boot. And the secure boot stops unassigned drivers from loading, and in a way it can help stop against rootkits. Right, and that's the end of my presentation. So is there any questions?